From Anchored in Faith Gospel Church in Oxford, Iowa, this is Anchored in Faith.
We're going to go in again to the book of Judges. We're coming to the end. One of the reasons, and if you look at the history of Israel, is when they moved into the land, they were told to get rid of all the Canaanites around them. Now, again, those people that hate Christians and hate the Bible will point to this and say, look at God, you know, this mean old God. But again, Islam accepts this. They don't have any problem with wiping out the enemies of God. They don't. It's what they're doing today. And so all the tribes, of course, all the tribes, when they moved into the land, were given a piece of land. And they were supposed to get rid of all of the other nations. Of course, they weren't supposed to intermarry with them, but they were supposed to get rid of them out of their particular tribal area. And they failed to do that. They left the Kenites, and they left the Perizzites, and they left all of these groups in the land. Now, they taxed them. They put them under tribute. But that wasn't the same. And so all of this works against Israel throughout its history. That's why they kept falling back into idolatries, because they were having, you know, allowing these people not only to be there, but they were practicing their worship. So again, that's one of the causes of Israel's problem throughout the whole book of Judges, is the fact that she did not get rid of these different nations of Canaan. And of course, all this actually can go back to Esau and Jacob, because Esau married two Canaanite women and brought them into his home. And his mother and father, they were grieved that, because even though the law hadn't been given, they were being taught not to intermarry with the idolaters, because they would bring their worship with them. And that's what they did with Esau. So when Esau did that, he was already despising his birthright. See, even before the incident with the bowl of soup and all of that, he was already showing that he didn't care about his promise, the promise that was going to be made to him. So when we look at chapter 17, we're going to see that, it's just going to get worse. We thought Samson, you know, we went from Gideon, who managed to raise an army to kick out the Midianites, to Samson, who fought the Philistines by himself, got no help from anybody. And now we have, of course, just pretty much chaos in the land. There's no leadership. There's no king yet. There will be a king down the road, but there's no king now. And Israel was supposed to be ruled as a theocracy, with God ruling through his priests and through the prophets and the judges. That was the setup. And if you look at chapter 22 or 21 of Joshua, we won't read it, but if you read that, you'll see that when they moved into the tribal areas, the Levites were moved in with them. Each tribe was supposed to have a group of Levites living there to instruct them in the law, to judge different cases, you know. And of course, when Jesus would heal somebody, what did he tell them? Go show yourself to the priest. That's what they were supposed to do. If you had a disease, you were supposed to go to the priest, the Levite, and show yourself, and he would determine what it was. If it was leprosy, you had to move. But for whatever else, he would, make an offering, and he would say, do this or that. And then when you were cleansed, you would go back and show yourself to the priest to show that God had healed you. So there were no doctors in Israel. Now, we could go a long way on that, but we won't. But there were no doctors in Israel. The Egyptians had doctors, and other nations had doctors, but Israel did not. God said, I'll be your healer. That was the way it's supposed to be. So we look at chapter 17, verse 1 says, and there was a man of Mount Ephraim whose name was Micah. And he said unto his mother, the 1,100 shekels of silver that were taken from thee, which the son had taken from her, about which thou cursed and spokest of also in mine ears, behold, the silver is with me, I took it. And his mother said, blessed be the name of the Lord, my son. And when he had restored the 1,100 shekels of silver to his mother said, I had wholly dedicated the silver unto the Lord from my hand for my son, to make a graven image and a molten image. Now therefore I will restore it unto thee. So she says she's given this money to God, but she's going to make an image. And what's going on here? I mean, here we have, this family, and this woman has the silver, and she's going to use it to make an image, even though she said that she's dedicated it to the Lord. And he restored the money unto his mother, and his mother took 200 shekels of silver and gave them to the founder, who made thereof a graven image and a molten image, and they were in the house of Micah. And the man Micah had a house of gods, and made an ephod and teraphim, and consecrated one of his sons, who became his priest. So everybody's running wild here. Here's this guy that they don't even give the 1,100 shekels. They take 200 and make the idol and do whatever with the rest. And he makes his son his priest. Well, that's all against the law of Moses. You just don't anoint somebody and make them your priest. You just don't melt down and make images and teraphim. Now, these teraphim were little household gods that people would have, and they'd put them in their house, and they were supposed to keep your house safe and all of this. And you'd pray to them, give them offerings and stuff like that. They were little, probably clay figures. And you see these are very common in the Middle East among these people. Everybody had their little household gods. And so, this sounds just like all the other nations around them. There's no Levites, there's no leadership. Nobody is doing anything that they've been commanded to do. Okay, so we go to verse 7. And there was a young man out of Bethlehem, Judah, of the family of Judah, and he was a Levite. And I get my glasses on, and he sojourned there. Now he's from Bethlehem. Bethlehem's 100 miles from Mount Ephraim. He's supposed to be in Bethlehem. He's a Levite assigned to that area. And yet he's up here floating around in Micah's house. He's out of his place. He's not where he's supposed to be. And so if you read the rest of this, Micah makes he hires him as his priest. And the man departed out of the city of Bethlehem, Judah, to sojourn where he could find a place, and he came to Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah, as he sojourned. And Micah said unto him, Whence comest thou? And he said unto him, I am a Levite of Bethlehem, Judah, and I go to sojourn that I may find a place. And Micah said to him, Dwell with me, and be unto me a father and a priest, and I will give thee 10 shekels of silver by the year, and a suit of apparel, and thy victuals. So the Levite went in. So he hired this guy to be a priest. Now, what did Jesus say about the shepherds? He said, there's true shepherds and there's hirelings. The true shepherd loves his sheep. That's his livelihood. You know, they know him, he knows them, he takes care of them. The hireling is somebody you hire, hired man, to come in and watch your sheep. And when the wolves come, what does he do? He runs away. But a true shepherd will fight for the sheep. He'll protect the sheep. So this guy has hired himself out to the highest bidder, and you'll see later that he hires himself out again to a higher bidder, and he's supposed to be down 100 miles away in his home area. So he's out, like a lot of people in the church, for the money. Now, we could say a lot about hireling ministers, hireling, people that are doing what they're doing for the big bucks. And we see that a lot. We've said that a lot. Yes. Most churches operate that way. They cannot function without a certain amount of cash flow. And you have to ask yourself, are these people really called of God? And a lot of them aren't. No. And you know what? We talk about people and we don't want to go to church and trying to get them in church. In a lot of ways, I can't blame people for not wanting to be in church when they see what they see. Amen. Especially younger people. When they see what they see from some of these people, you can't blame them. And, we have to try to convince them that we're different. Now, we're different. We don't have no big budget here. I mean, this is it. What you see is what you get. You come here, it's us. And maybe some more that aren't here today. But, but we're here. We're serving God because we feel that He's called us to do something. And so, again, you can't blame a lot of people for not wanting to get involved with the modern church because of what they see. But this guy has hired himself out. He's, and again, as we go down, we'll see that he is going to hire himself out to somebody else for more money. So, and the Levite was content to dwell with the man, and the young man was unto him as one of his sons. And Micah consecrated the Levite, and the young man became a priest and was in the house of Micah. Then said Micah, Now know I that the Lord will do me good, seeing I have a Levite in as my priest, to be my priest. So here we go. Well, I got a preacher in my family, so everything will be all right. God's going to bless me because this man is living, and he consecrated himself. That's not part of the law either. So again, Israel is just collapsing at this point. And there's nobody in charge. There's nobody giving any direction. And God's not even raising up anybody here to correct this. I think God's just, not turned his back, but just really shaking his head as to what my people are doing, because they're just totally out of whack. Okay, we start with chapter 18. In those days, there was no king in Israel, and in those days, the tribe of the Danites sought them an inheritance to dwell in. Now, they had a piece of land down south, but they were not able to overcome the other people that were already there, the Canaanites that were there. They were fighting them, and, they hadn't even settled the land. It was called the Camp of Dan. They weren't out able to till the land or do whatever because they were still fighting with these Canaanites. And they got tired of it. So they decided, well, we'll just take off. So they take off and they go up 100 miles to a new territory that's up not even in where the tribes, were given land, and they just take off. So again, what's that? That's not obedience. That's not being obedient. God gave them the land and told them, settle it, conquer it, kick out these Canaanites, and it's yours. And they just, we're tired of fighting. We don't want to fight. Well, everybody else is fighting for their piece of land. And so Dan is in rebellion against God. Now, some prophecy teachers, I've heard this, say that the Antichrist is going to come out of the tribe of Dan because, they're rebelled and all this. I don't know. I don't claim to be a prophecy expert, but I've heard that taught. And the children of Dan sent of their families 5 men from their coast, men of valor from Zorah and from Eshcahol, to spy out the land. Now this is similar to what they did when they came into the land, where they sent the 12 spies in. So they're spying out this land, and it's basically kind of empty. So they go back and they say, well, okay, this is empty land, let's just move in and take it. So that's what they do. So they move up to the north of Israel, and on the way, verse 6, and he said to them, thus and thus dealeth Micah with me, and hath hired me, and I am his priest. So the Levites saying that Micah's hired me as his priest. Well, they offer him more money. They say, well, you be our priest, and then God will bless us. See, we got this little religious thing, and there's so many people like this. Like we said, they have a minister in their family. They have some grandmother who's, a Christian, and they want to ride the coattails of that person. They want them to, wave their hand and, everything will be okay, and I'll always have protection, and everything will go my way because grandma's here, or, my brother who's a minister, over here. And people operate that. And then they do what they want to do, and want God to bless it. And that's the way most people are. They want to do what they want to do and have God bless it. And you know people, that's how they are. They don't want to change. They don't want any change because they're a Christian. And just like Israel, when we come into Christ, we got to get those Canaanites out of our lives. We got things that we need to separate ourselves from and get out of our lives. And we don't do it. If we don't do it, then then they're thorns to us. You know, they make us stumble. They make us sin. And so we're just like Israel. You know, if we look at ourselves, and I don't care how long we've been a Christian, we probably can find something that we haven't gotten rid of yet. We say this, I mean, you know, let's be honest with ourselves. We're all flesh and blood. We all live in this world. The world works on us. The world comes at us. The world, you know, the devil doesn't have to do very much anymore. You know, he doesn't have to appear to us and say, you know, hey, do this. It's all there. So, you know, we're just like Israel. If we don't get rid of whatever God tells us to get rid of, then we're going to have problems. And just like Dan, we get tired of this church, so we move on. Well, we'll find something else, see, and we'll find somebody that's not as mean or as hard. You know, we'll find some, you know, bigger church or some, you know, more fun or whatever. And we're just like Dan. See, we get tired of fighting. And I get tired of fighting. Let me tell you, I had a week, I was fighting all week this week. And you fight. We go out and whatever we're into, whatever we have to do, wherever we're at, we're fighting. And we get weary. And we get discouraged. We do. And we feel like picking up and heading out somewhere. And, well, you know, to a bigger church or just or just out of church. Sure. You know, they'll say, you can't do this. Just give it up. That's what he wants. You know, if he can get you to sin, that's one thing. But if he can get you to quit, that's the victory for him. So we're all just, this should be talking right to us because, you know, we fight and we struggle. And we're in the world, and the world's not going to leave you alone. And the devil's not going to leave you alone. And your flesh isn't going to leave you alone. Because your flesh has been programmed by different things. I keep saying this, but as we go through life, we get programmed. Your flesh is more than your skin and bones. It's everything that's in here that you've learned from whoever. And, you know, some of those things, I mean, well, I learned that from Mama. Well, you know, it's hard to go against your mama or your family or your background, whatever. And so we get programmed by the world and by everybody in it to do things a certain way, to think a certain way, and have certain attitudes. And we have to overcome some of it. Some of it's okay. You know, you learn to read and write in school and do all that. That's fine. That's programming. But, you know, stuff that we've done, stuff that we've seen, heard, it just stays there. And the devil will use it. And we have to get over that, the victory. We have to get the victory. And we do get tired. We're just like Dan. We want to pick up and head out. And that's what they did. Verse 15. Then answered the 5 men that went to spy out the country of Laish, and said unto their brethren, do you know that there is in these houses an ephod and teraphim and a graven image and a molten image? Now therefore consider what you have to do. And they turned thitherward and came to the house of the young man, the Levite, even unto the house of Micah, and saluted him. And the 600 men appointed with their weapons of war, which were of the children of Dan, stood by the entering of the gate. And the 5 men that went to spy out the land went up and came in thither, and took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image, and the priest stood in the entrance of the gate with the 600 men that were appointed with weapons of war. And these men, and these went into Micah's house, and fetched the carven image, the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. Then said the priest to them, What do ye? And they said unto him, Hold thy peace, lay thine hand upon thy mouth, and go with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for thee to be a priest unto the house of one man, or the priest of a tribe of a family in Israel? And the priest's heart was glad. Oh, I bet he was. He went from one man in his congregation to 600. Wow. Boy, there's a lot of preachers that go for that. And they do. They move on. So that's what he did. He said, well, this is a better deal. So he goes with them, and he becomes their priest. They have their image, their ephod, which of course is the, what the high priest was supposed to wear, and these teraphim, and they go set up, and they start worshiping all of this stuff, and they think they're serving God. Oh yeah, they think they're God's people. And, it's like Jeremiah, They always said in Jeremiah, in the book of Jeremiah, the priests were always saying, we have the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. Look at this. And they're doing all of this stuff underground. All this pagan worship was going on, and all of these sexual rites were going on, and the worship of the heavens, and all this stuff was going on underground, and the priesthood was saying, we have the temple of the Lord to protect us. And that's the way so many people are. That's the way we are. In America, in our churches, more and more. We have this, form of godliness, this veneer on the outside, just like Samson. He had his hair, and that was, as long as he kept his hair, that was his last connection to God. And when the hair was gone, so was God. And he was, in bondage. And so we're just, this is all for us because, the church in America more and more is just, it's just a form. It's a form. And everybody here, and we said this many times, has been through the system. We've been through some religious system. And we're all here because we weren't satisfied. We knew God wasn't there. And so, but there's so many of these churches that are just, there's just nothing there. I guess that's the way you get a little sermon, you get a little songs on the screen, hopping around, that's fine, But, you go out of there and there's nothing. You don't get taught anything. If you're not getting taught something by a pastor, he's not doing his job. Pastors are supposed to teach you so you can go out and win the lost. That's the New Testament. You don't drag sinners into some church and down to the altar. That's fine if they'll come, but they're not going to come. You've got to go to them, and you've got to be equipped with the Word and know what God wants you to say and how to say it and when to say it and when not to say it. And sometimes you can't do what, you got to back up. Linda's case, you just can't do everything. But that's the New Testament, is you coming and worshiping God and getting yourself built up and equipped to go win the lost.
Full sermons are available anytime at www.anchoredinfaith.org. Contact us by calling 319-828-4815 or write us at Anchored in Faith, P.O. Box 204, Oxford, Iowa 52322, or email us at tv@anchoredinfaith.org. This has been a copyrighted presentation of Anchored in Faith Gospel Church, Oxford, Iowa.